Welcome back. And of course, tomorrow is a holiday, courtesy of the fact that the New Year celebrations fell on a Sunday. But after that, it's back to work. So holidays are all over. And you need to set your mind to once the same thing. Joined in studio now by Betty Adera, the founder of Adera Foundation. We're talking about women in leadership. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Welcome to KBC.
My pleasure.
Absolutely. Talking about women leadership, of course, this election gave us more governors than the 2017 election did. How would you gauge women leadership so far?
Thank you, John, for having me here tonight.
Terrible, yes.
And Happy New Year to you and the entire KBC fraternity and Kenyans at large. And allow me, before I respond to that question, to convey my most sincere condolences to the passing of Catherine Kasavuli and many other beautiful souls who left this earth in the year that has just passed by. And now that we're in a new year, we can only say that we serve an amazing God who have enabled us to be here tonight. Now, the last general elections was a very unique one in a variety of ways. And out of the impact of the way Kenyans made their voices heard through the power of their vote, I can rate women in political leadership in terms of elective positions. I'd say out of 10, I'll give it a 6.
You would give it a 6?
I'd give it a 6. And this would be an increase, from, the previous election. I could have rated it at 4, So we have made gains. Kenyans are beginning to see the value in actually electing women in very, very senior positions of leadership of this country, positions of influence, positions of decision making, and positions of it's really up to them in terms of what happens to the people within their constituencies. We have an incredible number of governors right now out of our promulgated constitution, and it can only get better. Of course, we saw some governors like come back again. For example, Governor Ann, she's not a newcomer in the governorships space, but there are also others who are new, not new in politics per se, but new as newly elected governors. And to be honest, John, actually my star of all time was Governor Kawira.
Mwangaza.
She was my all-time star, and I'll tell you why. This is a fresher. I mean, at that level, that is one. 2, look at the people she was up against. You're talking about big names, experienced, names, men who have been there since maybe we were born, all right? And coming in without any covering or clothing of any political party. Akapenya katikati yao
as an independent
candidate. And in Meru, of all communities, in Meru, like in other communities, we all know how the patriarchal system is. But the people of Meru, in their large numbers, spoke very, very clearly and very, very loudly that we are clear in our minds that this is the person, this is the individual we want, to lead us in this country going forward.
The start of that moment.
So she was my star, really.
The start
she
of that
was
moment,
my star.
Betty, and I think you saw her in the Senate the other day. She was saved from the close of MCAs just about 2 days ago by the Senate. But some of the accusations that were leveled against her, obviously about not collaborating with any leaders, even vilification of leaders. And this is not the first time you're seeing that. I think Governor Ann Waiguru has also been impeached, and the accusations were almost similar. Is it mob lynching? Is it an attitude problem, or women leaders just have that?
It's in my personal view, it's a variety of issues. All right. So first of all, you can't be so bad so quickly. You can't have done all this, so many wrong things in just about 100 days in office. You haven't even barely, sat nicely on that chair and boom, you're already in the Senate. And this is politics. We also cannot rule out any under dealings within the political space. So that is one. Secondly, no matter how you come in, even if you're elected in a party, politics in terms of campaigning is one thing. But once you have taken oath, you have sat on that chair, you have won the confidence of the majority of your constituents, and this goes all the way up, then your role is now to serve everybody, no matter how they voted. Your role is to bring together, figure it out, how to bring together. Call people in groups, call people as individuals, listen to their issues. Public participation, there's a reason why it's embedded in our constitution. And of course, develop the wisdom and the weight and the emotional intelligence, if you allow me to use that word, to govern. All right? Of course, albeit the fact that you also know that there are all these forces around you that could just be switched off and turn against you. So for me, the case of the Meru governor, in my personal view, there could have been a lot of forces behind the scenes that were pushing it. That is one. But secondly, also, we also have to agree that winning an election is just one thing. Governing is a completely different skill that everybody, including men, need so that they can succeed in the role that they have been elected in. Once you take oath, it's all about governance. It's all about fulfilling the promise. Remember when you went around in the campaigns, you were saying, I will do. So that's the time. You have 5 years to do it. And the minute you take the oath like this, you hold the Bible, the clock, the clock starts ticking. So I personally felt that probably the MCS in their right, also as elected leaders of that country, perhaps moved too quickly, and perhaps the governor could have felt pushed, to the corner. Also, she's new, she doesn't have any covering, of any political party. She's an independent and doesn't know what to do. And also, we are also not clear in our laws. Role of first lady is very clear, whether it's at the presidential level or but role of first husband, first gentleman. We need to talk about these things so that when women actually penya and win, then they need to be enabled to govern, so that then at the end of the day, at the end of the term, they can be put to task just as much as we put the men to task. In terms of, you sat on that chair, you had everything you needed to have, to govern. So to what extent then have you actually achieved the promises that you committed to your own people?
Absolutely. Talking about this election, before we even got to the Kawera Mwangaza issues, the number of women elected, of course, as governors, the number of women leaders elected as members of parliament was a record number. Of course, not as huge as you would expect, obviously, as the women pushing for women leadership, which takes me back to the conversation about around 2/3 gender rule. And when you look at the uptake of women leaders by the electorate, is it possible then, without risking dissolution of parliament or revisiting the constitution, that progressively we can implement the 2/3 gender rule based on what we saw in this last election and the election in 2017?
The 2/3 gender rule in the constitution is a very noble idea. Remember, it is 2/3 gender rule. It is not 2/3 women rule. It is not 2/3 men rule. It is 2/3 gender rule. And believe me, John, a time may come in this Kenya, not too far away from today, when we will see the flip on the other side. It's possible, looking at the record of just the last general election. So for me, I want to believe that that conversation from the word go went off track. It almost sounded like it's a war between men and women. That's not it. That's missing the point. Gender rule is about to what extent can we ensure a balance It's about a balance. For what reasons? A balance so that there is representation, there is adequate number of influential voices to represent Kenyans out there in their diversity the correct way. All right? Now, who elects people to the National Assembly? It is you and me on the ballot day. How? Through a process, a constitutional process led by IEBC. But that whole game, John, is played within the political parties. So for me, I take this conversation back to political parties. It is political parties who present candidates to Kenyans. You see my point? They present candidates to Kenyans. Party A is going to have their own lineup, Party B, and so on and so on. If you don't even touch the issue around coalition, development and movement. But let's just stick to the political parties. So within that space, in my view, if political parties can make a deliberate effort to ensure that they stick to their own rules, because the rules are very clear, I've seen it across the board, the rules are very clear, that they're going to ensure that they remove all barriers possible, imaginable, to ensure that young people have just as much opportunities to vie as women, as people with disabilities, as minorities, and so on and so forth. And to ensure a good mix also of people of Kenya from all walks of life and all diversity groups, if you see what I mean. Yeah.
Let's use the remaining 1 minute to probably talk about gauging the leadership of women, because we've talked about elective politics, but there's appointive positions,
that's right,
as well as the positions available in the corporate world. How do you think the Republic of Kenya or Kenyans have taken up women leadership in these spaces? Very quickly.
I'm a leader, a CEO in the corporate world myself, within the civil society. And John, I can tell you, it is not a walk in the park. It's not a walk in the park either.
Okay.
Because even those are leadership positions with its own challenges just as much as the challenges exist within the political party. So here's the thing. You need to understand the politics of the organization, the politics of the leadership structure.
Politics
the
again.
Politics, yes. There's politics of political parties, there's politics ile yetu ya Kenya tu ile, but there's also the internal, that internal, that will sometimes result in somebody who is very, very qualified and has everything, that is needed for them to arise to position of CEO. And someone else from nowhere is the one who's put there. Why? There are things that we must, talk about. And for women in particular, I always challenge myself as I challenge others, especially young women, that what does it take for you to create your own space on that table? Because a meeting has to happen somewhere for those decisions to be made. And John, believe me, there are hardly women.
Hardly women.
Hardly women, or hardly as many voices as needed on those high tables.
All right, absolutely. Thank you very much, Betty, for joining us tonight. Of course, hope to engage you moving forward in this year, 2023. I think there are appointed positions coming up again in the coming months. We'll call you again also, so we can keep, checking on the progress the country is making in terms of enhancing women leadership. That's Betty Adera, the founder, Betty Adera Foundation, talking about women in leadership. That's why we put a cap on Sunday Express. Happy New Year. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. See you on Wednesday, but keep watching KBC Channel 1.